Okay guys, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Now, fasten your seatbelts. Here we go. All right guys, it is Saturday, August 15th, and it is 10:12 p.m. Eastern Time. I hope everyone is doing well, and let's get into the news. Alrighty, but first, I want to thank a few people. Actually, I'm not sure why I put the 14th there. It is actually the 15th. Yes, it is. I had to check. All right, so the following donated via coffee: Charmy Woo, Charmaine Kempt Cortinas. And I've seen Charmy Woo in the comments many times, so thank you. And Sunny Bishop, thank you very much. Also received via Patreon, and these people have become new Patreon members, except for Kelly B, who increased her pledge. Thank you very much. And Debbie and Margaret Carter are new Patreon subscribers, and thank you so very much for that. I appreciate the support that I get, and I appreciate you all very much. Thank you for listening. Now, this is just a bunch of news that has been in the news over the last couple days, so there's no particular order as usual. And we'll just go through this. I probably have more than enough for, well, I have more than enough for one video. I probably have enough for one video and a short video. So we'll see how it goes. Anyway, this from In the Matrix. And he said, I'm just going to leave this here. Twitter followers: Joe Biden, 8.3 million. Kamala Harris, 4.8 million. About half of what Biden has. And then there's Donald J. Trump with 85.1 million. And yet they'd like us to believe that, Joe Biden is ahead in the polls. I'm just saying that that is absolute nonsense. There's absolutely no way. And it's not only reflected in his Twitter followers, but it's also reflected in the fact that if he has any sort of get-together, there's like 5 people that show up, while Donald Trump can pack out stadiums. So I don't really think there's a question of who's going to win. If everyone plays fair, it will definitely be Trump. All right, now let's go over here. This is Anonymous Patriot. Joe Biden offered mask mandates today. Trump offered peace in the Middle East. The choice could not be more clear. Now, I could not concur more heartily than I already do with that. Absolutely. Yeah, there's a big difference between what Donald Trump is doing for the country and what Joe Biden is doing or not doing, as the case may be. And what authority does he have to offer a mask mandate for the country? He has no authority whatsoever. And yet, he'd like you to believe that he does. So anyway, let's go on. And this from Juanita Broderick. I have a great deal of respect for Juanita Broderick. I really do. And she says, Bill Clinton is a rapist. And I think we're all pretty aware of that. Bill Clinton is a serial sexual predator. I think we're all pretty much aware of that as well. Bill Clinton is a keynote speaker for the DNC convention. There are no words. Yeah, isn't it interesting that knowing what everybody knows about Bill Clinton, they still feel completely comfortable with having him as the keynote speaker for the DNC? That should tell you everything you need to know right there. All right, and let's take a look at this, which I find very fascinating indeed. Reagan's speechwriter: Biden plagiarized Reagan in Harris announcement speech. Now, this should surprise exactly no one. What began with plagiarizing from Neil Kinnock has migrated over time to Robert Kennedy, John Kennedy, and now Ronald Reagan. Well, you don't think that he could actually write an original speech, do you? Or anyone working for him? I really doubt that. These people are not, they're not the brightest bulbs in the marquee, and they are not working for the brightest bulb in the marquee. So, the kind of people that would back Biden probably aren't packing a lot of neurons upstairs, if you get my drift. So, anyway, this doesn't surprise me. Wow, former Vice President Joe Biden, replete with a serious history of plagiarism, as noted here in the New York Times in 1987, quoting my younger self in the Reagan White House, who nailed him on plagiarizing from Bobby Kennedy, is at it again. Reagan speechwriter Ken Kashigan alerted Reagan alumni, of which I am one, that in listening to Joe Biden's introduction of running mate Senator Kamala Harris, he heard something familiar. Specifically, it was this, as seen here. Now, let's take a listen to this, and I'll make it larger for you tiny phone people, if I can.
Meeting and spending a good deal of time
and I can't.
with talented women leaders, all of them are qualified to be president.
Oh, here
With
we go.
each one, the more I learned about them, the more I talked to them, the more impressed I was, even though I knew them before. I want to thank each and every one of them for being part of this process. And I look forward to working with them as we rebuild this country to get elected, and once we are elected, God willing. I approach this with a seriousness of purpose and of mind, because this is a serious moment for our nation. We're at one of those inflection points. You've heard me say that before in our history. A life-changing election for this nation. And the choice we make this November is going to decide the future of America for a very, very long time. And I had a great choice, great opportunities. I had a great choice, but I have no doubt that I picked the right person to join me as the next Vice President of the United States of America, and that's Senator Kamala Harris. You know, and it seems Americans all across this nation, at least at the outset here, agree with me.
I just realized that this is 17 minutes and 47 seconds long, and there is not a chance I'm going to play all that. So let's go down further here and see what they have to say about what exactly was plagiarized. Said Joe, we can define America simply in one word: possibilities. Possibilities. Let me say it again. Possibilities. That's America. Ken, one of the crack speech writers for President Reagan, knew exactly where he had heard this talk of America and possibilities before. It was September 3rd, 1984, where the president was speaking at a Reagan-Bush campaign rally in Fountain Valley, California, said Reagan. Now, we've heard what others have offered to the American people today. In this year, they have said that America is nothing if it isn't promises. Well, America isn't about promises. It never has been. America is about promise. America is about promise. It's about possibility. Recall that 1987, a full 33 years ago, was when Joe Biden was running his first race for president. The campaign of Democratic rival Governor Michael Dukakis revealed that Biden has been plagiarizing from British Labour Party leader Neil Kinnock. The Dukakis people put together this devastating side-by-side video comparison of Biden and Kinnock saying the identical words, and the Biden plagiarizing scandal was launched. So this was way back, and let's listen to this. Sorry.
Is the first in his family ever to go to a university. Why is it that my wife, who's sitting out there in the audience, is the first in her family to ever go to college?
People in Britain would have been familiar with those words. They heard the same ones in a political commercial from Labour Party leader Neil Kinnock.
Why am I the first Kinnock in 1,000 generations to be able to get to university? Why is Grace the first woman in her family in 1,000 generations?
Biden saw the Kinnock commercial and evidently loved it.
Was it because they were weak? Those people who could work 8 hours underground and then come up and play football? Weak?
My ancestors who worked in the coal mines in northeast Pennsylvania and who come up after 12 hours and play football for 4 hours?
Biden had told other audiences he admired Kinnock, not this one. This one, he later said, he had listening in hushed silence.
No, it's not because they weren't as smart. It's not because they didn't work as hard. It's because they didn't have a platform upon which to stand.
Anybody really think that they didn't get what we had because they didn't have the talent, or the strength, or the endurance, or the commitment? Of course not.
it was because there was no platform upon which they could stand.
Now, I do apologize for that video because it's extremely hard to see that. I mean, I think that video must have been recorded on a potato.
This
Anyway,
standard is not a measure of how we can evaluate the condition of our
Hang on.
society.
There we go. Yeah, it must have been recorded on a potato because that is the most blurry video I've ever seen. But I hope you got that he was plagiarizing word for word from this guy from Britain. And yeah, and if he plagiarized back then, don't you think that he's, there's a good chance that he'll do it again? Well, he did. He did in announcing Kamala Harris as his running mate. I am astonished, Times reporter Maureen Dowd, that I knew for a fact that Biden had plagiarized from my teenage hero, Bobby Kennedy, and I could prove it. I brought my own album of Kennedy speeches that I had memorized so long ago to the Times Washington Bureau. The RFK speech in question was compared to a Biden speech in California I had seen on C-SPAN. And bingo, a match. 2 days later came the Times story on the front page, headlined, Biden is facing growing debate on his speeches. For whatever reason today, the Washington Post has kindly put together a video comparing Biden's words to those of Bobby Kennedy, and yes, another speech in which he ripped off a speech by President John F. Kennedy. That video is right here. Now, I'm not going to play this because, again, this looks like it was recorded on a potato, and I don't want to put you through that, but I don't think that any of us are surprised that he's plagiarizing because he's not smart enough to write his own material. Do we want this man leading our country? I certainly don't, and I'm pretty sure you don't either, because not only is he now dealing with dementia, but he does not, he's been in politics all these years. I'm not sure how long he's been in politics, but a very, very long time. And he's promising this. He's promising us everything. But why hasn't he done any of that before now? He's had the opportunity to. He was vice president. Why didn't he enact any of these things that he wants to enact now, then? Well, that's a good question. Now, on the other hand, Donald Trump has been in office for 3 years, well, a little bit more than 3 years, and look at everything he has accomplished. 3 years. And he's not a politician, which is now, I've come to believe, a good thing. So, you would think Biden and his speechwriters, within a matter of days after the Times story, Biden was out of the 1988 presidential race. And, well, he should have been. He wasn't in any shape then to run as president, and he's not in any shape now. He's in less shape now. You would think Biden and his speechwriters of today would have learned, but as Ken Koshigan astutely realized, they haven't. So towards the end of his introduction speech for Harris, old Sleepy Joe suddenly waxed downright Reagan-esque. What began with plagiarizing from Neil Kinnock has migrated over times to Robert Kennedy, John Kennedy, and now Ronald Reagan. Imagine that. Well, let's move on now to the next item and see what other trouble we can get into. Alrighty, here we go. And let's look at this, which again is a little bit astounding, but not surprising. Teacher complains that online learning lets parents see what happens at gender sexuality lessons. Oh, goodness, we can't have parents seeing that now, can we? The Philadelphia teacher fretted that parents' ability to look in on their kids' classes will make it harder to encourage vulnerability and will damage honest conversations with students. I think what they probably mean is that letting parents look in on these classes will probably cause a lot of undue strife. Well, it's not undue, but they will think it's undue strife on the teachers because parents will, well, I can't think of any other way. Or any other way to put this. They will freak out because I would. All right, if that was my child, you bet I'd freak out, and I'd be making a little trip to the school as well, and I wouldn't be wearing my smiley face. Okay, Now, Philadelphia, August 11th, 2020, LifeSite News, a teacher within the school district of Philadelphia is lamenting the increased chance of parental oversight if classes are taught online amid the coronavirus crisis, especially when it comes to so-called sex education. I'm most intrigued by the damage that helicopter snowplow parents can do in honest conversations about gender, sexuality, the teacher said. The teacher, Matthew R.K., works for Philadelphia's Science Leadership Academy. In 2018, he published his book, Not Light, But Fire, How to Lead Meaningful Race Conversations in the Classroom. While his tweets are private, one Twitter user posted a screenshot of his thread of complaints. So this fall, virtual class discussions will have many potential spectators, parents, siblings, etc. in the same room, Kay began. We'll never be quite sure who is overhearing the discourse. What does this do for our equality inclusion work? Well, you know, if you're teaching something that other people can't overhear, well, maybe you're not teaching the right thing or teaching it the right way. Because I can't imagine a teacher teaching something and being afraid that others might overhear, unless they're teaching something that perhaps maybe they shouldn't. I'm just saying. So, yeah, how much have students depended on the somewhat secure barriers of our physical classrooms to encourage vulnerability? How many of us have installed some version of what happens here stays here to help this? Kay then went on to mention honest conversations about gender and sexuality as an issue where parents who are involved in their children's education would be unhelpful. Gee, imagine teaching something that would upset parents to such a degree that you don't want them to overhear it at all, ever. Kay admitted that conservative parents are my chief concern, but said that damage can come from the left too. If we are engaged in the messy work of destabilizing a kid's racism or homophobia or transphobia, how much do we want their classmates' parents piling on? Well, maybe they need that. Why shouldn't parents hear your discourse? Matt R.K. is hiding comments. He will not be able to hide this one. Now, this is from Twitter, from Low and Slow, Claude's Barbecue. Parents, pay attention to what your kids are being taught. And here is Matthew R.K. He said, so this fall, virtual class discussions will have many potential spectators. Okay, we've already read that above. And let's come down here. So yeah, we've already read his tweets, so I won't read them again. The Family Research Council, FRC, in May released a publication on sex education in public schools outlining how sex ed programs push the limit of what is appropriate, both in terms of the material presented to students and the age at which it's presented. Often parents are unaware that these things are happening at school. According to the publication, parents have two main concerns about sex ed today: that it sexualizes children and that it is loaded with LGBTQ indoctrination. Even if parents identify problematic lessons in sex ed and manage to opt their kids out, that won't protect them from sex propaganda elsewhere in school, sometimes where they least expect it, Kathy Roos, the author of the publication, pointed out. Sometimes parents are intentionally deceived about what their children are taught at school. Parents in Fairfax County, Virginia, are told that an abstinence lesson will talk about the benefits of abstaining from sexual activity until marriage. However, as Roos found out, the word marriage never appears anywhere in the lesson. In any case, students are not simply taught how sexual intercourse works, focusing on the biology of it. Instead, prepubescent children in Austin, Texas, for instance, are encouraged to consider vaginal intercourse, oral intercourse, and anal intercourse. Schools in Indiana actually send teens shopping for condoms with a worksheet to fill out, comparing brands, prices, lubrication, and whether or not they are comfortable shopping in the store. Additionally, the term consent is no longer used exclusively to equip kids to resist committing or being a victim of sexual assault. Rather, the consent movement seems less about avoiding assault and more about promoting sex and sexual rights. Sex education is sometimes used to promote abortion, with children being encouraged to keep even the killing of a baby secret from their parents. In California, schools have partnered with Planned Parenthood and the American Civil Liberties Union to instruct students on how to get secret abortions without telling their parents, according to a video released by the California organization Our Watch. So, this is all very interesting, and it's not surprising. We know this is going on. There are all sorts of things that we have seen, and this is something that if you have kids of a school age, that you need to be aware of what's being taught. So let's go on now to the next item, because there's more. There's always more. And let's look at this, which I really don't understand how this is. Breaking, this is from August 14th. Breaking, appeals court rules Hillary Clinton does not have to testify on emails and Benghazi attack records. Why the heck not, is my question. Why does she always seem to get a pass? Why? Well, I mean, we know, but for how long is she going to receive a pass? That's what I want to know. Because I think we're all waiting for the day that the handcuffs go on. A D.C. appeals court ruled on Friday that Hillary Clinton does not have to testify on her private email system and Benghazi attack records. Judicial Watch in 2015 discovered Hillary Clinton used a private server and blew the story wide open after uncovering emails she sent from a non-state.gov email account. Earlier this year, a federal court ordered a deposition of Hillary Clinton on her emails and Benghazi attack records. Clinton hit back and filed an appeal to stop her court-ordered email testimony. Conservative watchdog group Judicial Watch said it is considering its options. And this is Tom Fitton. Breaking, appeals court rules Hillary Clinton does not have to testify on emails and Benghazi attack records. Judicial Watch is disappointed by the decision and considering its options. Well, I don't think Judicial Watch is alone in that. I think we are all very disappointed, to say the very, very least, about that decision. And Tom Fitton said, heavy lifting at Judicial Watch, battling both Hillary Clinton and Adam Schiff in federal court. Plus, coronavirus shutdown must end. Well, yeah, I think we all agree there as well. So there you go. In June of this year, Judicial Watch blasted the government's continued efforts to protect Hillary Clinton. As you might recall, initially, even the Justice Department couldn't stomach her writ of mandamus appeal, Fitton affirms. Now, however, we can't even get the Justice Department to come in and argue against Hillary Clinton, even though they know she's legally wrong and have told the court in writing that she is. We just want to get through these Clinton email cases. We just want to end them and keep it behind us. Fitton stated, as he paraphrases a DOJ's characterization of the case, they don't have one whit of concern about the misconduct, about the accountability, he continues. However, despite the DOJ's disagreement over her appeal, Fitton asks Attorney General Barr, why on earth would you allow your attorneys to come into court and basically dismiss the concerns of tens of millions of Americans about the misconduct of Hillary Clinton? Watch Judicial Watch Tom Fitton discuss the D.C. Court of Appeals decision with Fox Business host Lou Dobbs. And we are not going to look at that right now, but it's pretty easy to find. If you Google that on YouTube, you should be able to find this. And Tom Fitton reacts to appeals court overturning. And let's go down here. You can support Tom Fitton and Judicial Watch by clicking here. And I have in the past supported Judicial Watch, and I probably need to do that again because they are doing fantastic work, and I wholeheartedly agree with what they are doing, and the work that they are doing is stellar, to say the least. All right, now let's go back, and I just need to check something here, just to make sure, because as you know, I've had problems from time to time with thinking it was recording and it wasn't. And, you know, that makes me really ugly. So, yeah, let's go back and let's look at this. All right, now, this is just about one of the strangest things I've ever seen. Really strange. And I'm not sure I'd believe it if I hadn't seen it. In fact, I know I wouldn't have believed it unless I saw it. But let's take a look at this. This is King of Bahrain arrives in Dubai with his robot bodyguard fitted 360 with cameras and inbuilt pistols. Technology moving very fast than ever. Okay, this is obviously translated from someone because it's not good English, but I think we understand what they're saying. The King of Bahrain arrives in Dubai. He's got a robot bodyguard. He's fitted with cameras with a 360 view, and there's pistols built in. Technology is moving very fast, or faster than ever in history. Now, politicians might order this too. Well, I hope not, because it looks like something from a sci-fi movie to me. And look at how big that robot is. It's a little scary. And actually, when I looked at that, I thought, that's a guy in a costume. Give me a break. But when he walks by, you can tell, no, it's not a guy in a costume. It is a robot. Yeah, a real one. So let's take a look at this short little video, and I'll make it bigger for you tiny phone people, because I'm always thinking of you, you know, always. All right, here we go. Now watch this thing approaching, and look at the head. Not a costume. Listen to the sound it makes. Seriously. Now, if you were, you know, if you saw a guy approaching you with a robot behind it that big, yeah, I'd get out of his way. Really. Quickly. I'm just saying. That's a mean-looking robot. And really, I honestly did believe it was a guy in a costume. But when you get the side view, you can tell that there's no actual head there. It's just robotics. Yeah, so there you go. And again, I say, it's just about one of the strangest things I've seen. But, you know, I've seen so many strange things in the last 3 years that I don't even know if that's the strangest thing I've seen. If it is the strangest thing I see, I can guarantee you that it won't be the strangest thing for long, because something even stranger will come along. Within days, probably. All right, there you go. Just had to show you that. Okay, and let's go back, because there's more. Always more. And this from Donald J. Trump. I have directed Steve Mnuchin to get ready to send direct payments, $3,400 for family of 4, to all Americans. Democrats are holding this up. Now, you know why he's doing that. He wants the American people to know that, look, I want to give this money to you. I'm ready to give this money to you, but the Democrats are holding it up. And I think that that's good that he does that and lets people know, places the blame at the feet of exactly where it belongs. So yeah, when you don't have food on the table and you can't pay your rent this month because you've lost your job because of COVID, well, you can blame the Democrats, who really don't care about the American people and are now on vacation again. And this from Digital Soldier. Thank you, Mr. President, for supporting the American people when we need it the most. We will not soon forget the treachery that the Democrats have engaged in at the expense of working Americans. Shame on the Democrats, and thank God you are in office. Yes, if we had to rely on the Democrats, well, yeah. I guess the moral of the story is don't trust the Democrats. But I think we've all kind of got that by now. All right, let's look at this. This is mildly terrifying. States have authority to fine or jail people who refuse coronavirus vaccine, attorney says. Legal precedent dates back to 1905. San Diego, KGTV, as drug makers race to develop a vaccine against the coronavirus, several legal questions are emerging. Could the government require people to get it? Could people who refuse to roll up their sleeves get banned from stores or lose their jobs? The short answer is yes, according to Dov Fox, a law professor at the director of the Center for Health, Law Policy, and Bioethics at the University of San Diego. States can compel vaccinations in more or less intrusive ways, he said in an interview. They can limit access to schools or services or jobs if people don't get vaccinated. They could force them to pay a fine or even lock them up in jail. Now, this is exactly what I have said, because everyone keeps saying, oh, Trump's not going to force us to get that vaccine. He keeps saying that it's, that it's, voluntary, that you don't have to get it, it's not mandatory. Well, that is all well and true, and I do believe him when he says that. However, are the schools going to require it before children go to school? I mean, they already do require vaccinations now. So are they going to require this? What about travel? What about getting on an airplane or a train or a subway or a bus? What about an airplane? What about crossing the borders? Yeah, all of these could require that vaccine. So although it's not mandatory, your life may become very, very limited if you don't take it. Fox noted authority in the United States have never attempted to jail people for refusing to vaccinate, but other countries like France have adopted the aggressive tactic. The legal precedent dates back to 1905 in a landmark U.S. Supreme Court case, Jacobson versus Massachusetts. The court ruled Massachusetts had the authority to fine people who refused vaccinations for smallpox. And I've never understood that, because if you are vaccinated against smallpox, well, then somebody that isn't vaccinated is no threat to you because you're not going to get it anyway, right? So I've never really understood, because they say, oh, no, you could pass it on. Well, who are you going to pass it on to if everyone else is vaccinated? Does that make sense? Doesn't make sense to me. Anyway, so in 2019, New York City passed an order. Oh, wait. I think I skipped a bit. That case formed the legal basis for vaccine requirement at schools and has been upheld in subsequent decisions. Courts have found that when medical necessity requires it, the public health outweighs the individual rights and liberties at stake, Fox said. In 2019, New York City passed an ordinance that fined people who refused a measles vaccination. That said, recent protests over face coverings show there could be significant backlash to vaccine mandate, Fox said. Just because states have the power to do it doesn't mean it's the best public policy, he added, although states would have the authority to mandate vaccinations. There's more doubt about whether Congress could enact a federal requirement. The most likely federal vaccination requirement would come in the form of a tax penalty, but Fox said, given the current composition of the Supreme Court, a federal vaccine requirement would likely be found unconstitutional. Opponents of the federal mandate would cite the Supreme Court's 2012 decision on the Affordable Care Act, Fox said. In that case, the justices ruled that Congress could not use its powers to regulate interstate commerce to require people to buy health insurance, even though the ACA's individual mandate was ultimately upheld on separate grounds. That means the U.S. could have a patchwork of different vaccine requirements in different states. States that explore a vaccine requirement should only do so if the vaccine is widely and readily available, Fox said. Otherwise, you create an underclass of people who are less safe and without access to the basic means of society, he said. States would need to allow exemptions for people with legitimate medical risks, like pregnancy, but not exemptions on religious or philosophical grounds, he said. Religious exemptions are not constitutionally required by the First Amendment's free exercise clause, provided that the vaccine mandates don't single out religion. They're not motivated by a desire to interfere with it, he said. In the workplace, private employers would have a lot of flexibility to require vaccinations and fire workers who refuse them for anything but legitimate medical concerns. As long as employers show there are significant costs associated with having unvaccinated workers, they would not need to offer religious exemptions to employees, Fox said. Under the 1964 Civil Rights Act, employees are not required to accommodate religious employees if doing so would pose more than a de minimis or minimal cost. Now, that is very, very interesting, and that is what I have been concerned with all along, and I voiced that concern. And, even though it doesn't make sense, because if everyone in a company is vaccinated, but I refuse to be vaccinated, of what harm am I doing to anybody? Because they've already been vaccinated, therefore they can't get it. So why am I a threat to anyone? I'm not. So yeah, it doesn't make sense, but doesn't matter. They'll make it make sense, if you know what I mean. All right, so let's move on. And let's get to this. Now you're going to find this very, very, very interesting. Well, at least I think you will. So I guess you could sue me if I'm wrong, but I think you'll find it interesting. All right. Now, this by Henry McCow, who I really trust, actually, more or less. Now, he said, Illuminati vowed in 1969, travel will be more difficult. Now, this is from today, so it's hot and fresh, just like the Krispy Kreme donut sign. Wake up, folks. The coronavirus is a hoax, a pretext for the radical, undemonic reorganization of society. Now, I think we're all now realizing that that's exactly what is happening. This is just a pretext for all these changes that they're wanting to bring in. So, 1969, travel would become very restricted. People would need permission to travel, and they would need a good reason to travel. If you didn't have a good reason for your travel, you would not be allowed to travel, and everyone would need ID. Later on, some sort of device would be developed to be implanted under the skin that would be coded specifically to identify the individual. Sound familiar? Sure sounds familiar to me. Now, does he, I think this might be along the same line. Like sheep, humanity had better adjust to constant harassment as long as it tolerates Illuminati control of all important government and social institutions. On March 20th, 1969, Rockefeller insider Dr. Richard Day, 1905 to 1989, gave a speech to the Pittsburgh division of the American Medical Association in which he predicted travel would become very restricted. People would need permission to travel, and they would need a good reason to travel. If you didn't have a good reason for your travel, you'd not be allowed to travel. And everyone would need ID. Now, this was in, what year was this? 1969. That's a long time ago. So isn't that interesting that what is about to happen now was predicted in 1969 by a Rockefeller insider? Very interesting. Later on, some sort of device would be developed to be implemented under the skin that would be coded specifically to identify the individual. Although prohibited, Dr. Lawrence Dunegan made notes and related the contents of the speech to Randy Engel, who made them available on tape. Dr. Dunegan reveals not just what's is intended for America and all the people in the world, but how the controllers intend to carry out their plan. Dr. Day left, said everything is in place and nobody can stop us now. Some of you will think I'm talking about communism. Well, what I'm talking about is much bigger than communism. Everything has two purposes. One is the ostensible purpose, which will make it acceptable to people, and second is the real purpose, which would further the goals of establishing the new system and having it. Interesting. Don't you see that in play today? New difficult to diagnose and untreatable diseases. Now, this was predicted. Next heading to talk about is health and disease. He said there would be new diseases to appear which had never been seen before. What are we facing now? Would be very difficult to diagnose and be untreatable, at least for a long time. No elaboration was made on this, but I remember not long after hearing this presentation, when I had a puzzling diagnosis to make, I would be wondering, is this what he was talking about? Is this a case of what he was talking about? Some years later, as AIDS ultimately developed, I think AIDS was at least one example of what he was talking about. I now think AIDS probably was a manufactured disease. Day also covered topics such as people who have to get used to change. Everything will change constantly. The real and the stated goals. Population control. So this is the real and the stated goals. Population control, permission to have babies, redirecting the purpose of sex, sex without reproduction and reproduction without sex, sex education as a tool of world government, encouraging homosexuality, sex, anything goes, euthanasia and the demise pill, limiting access to affordable medical care makes eliminating the elderly easier, planning the control over medicine, elimination of private doctors, suppressing cancer cures as a means of population control, inducing heart attacks as a form of assassination, education as a tool for accelerating the onset of puberty and pushing evolution, and much, much more. As long as the masses refuse to acknowledge the Illuminati conspiracy, they will continue to be complicit in their own destruction. For the last 6 months, in 2010, we have been bombarded with propaganda about the swine flu. Millions have been vaccinated. Billions of profits have been made. These vaccines might have been harmless. Who knows about the next? What we do know is, generally speaking, swine flu proved to be less dangerous than seasonal flu. Then recently, for over a week, we were bombarded with hysteria about weather change, aka climate change. The Club of Rome concocted this boogeyman back in the 1980s. We must regard official society as brainwashing chamber where we are being subjected to trauma-based mind control. Other traumatic events from the last decade include 9/11, the tsunami, Hurricane Katrina, the Great Northeastern Power Blackouts, the financial meltdown, and the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. It's been a good decade for the Illuminati. Society is far more fearful and pessimistic, far more willing to accept totalitarian control. Now, in the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, the author writes, now I'm not sure where I stand on that, so I'm just going to put that out there. I don't know. Yes, I have read it. In the Protocols of the Elder of Zion, the author writes that their goal is to wear everyone out by dissensions, animosity, feuds, famine, inoculation of diseases, want until the Gentiles see no other way of escape except appeal to our money and our power. We will so wear out and exhaust the Gentiles by all this that they will be compelled to offer us an international authority by which by its position will enable us to absorb without disturbance all the governmental forces of the world and thus form a super government. Harold Rosenthal, who was a member of this cabal, boasted that they even implanted a guilt complex over the Holocaust and anti-Semitism that prevents society from addressing the threat. Now, see, I don't actually believe that there's this big Jewish threat. I don't know. Do I believe that there is a conspiracy worldwide to have a new world order? Absolutely I do, and they are well on their way. Through control of banking, they acquire a total monopoly of the movie industry, the radio networks, and the newly developed television media. We took over the media of all school materials, even your music. We censor the songs released for publication long before they reach the publishers. We will have complete control of your thinking, and for the most part, they do. For many, many people who do not realize that everything that we see and experience is manufactured for us for their ends, pretty much. There are some people out there trying to bring real news, and thank goodness for that. But a lot of what we see is meant to propagandize us, and that is what it's doing. And I think you're all aware of that. We have to put issue upon issue to the American people. Then we promote both sides of the issue as confusion reigns. With their eyes fixed on the issues, they fail to see who is behind every scene. See, and I don't know. I'm just not, so I don't want to get into a big discussion about, the Jews and whether there's this big conspiracy or whatever. I don't know. I do believe that there are Anyway, I'm not going to get into that. All right, Society of Shills. The Illuminati Central Banking Cartel controls government, credit, media, banking, corporations, education, professional associations, justice, military, you name it. They use Freemasonry as their instrument. Recently, I posted an article about how they control the U.S. black community using the Masonic bowl. The same principle applies everywhere. Society operates on two rails: the formal, the image of a democracy ruled by law that dupes the masses and ensures their cooperation; the informal, the Illuminati Club, which actually makes the decisions regardless of what's happening on the formal level. The informal infiltrates the formal until the latter is merely a mask for the former. Who want to succeed? Join the club of secret Satan worshippers. That's what Barack Obama did. In a post, May 29th, 2009, Emily Guide, an Illuminati defector who claimed to be the real author of the Harry Potter series, says Obama told her this. I remember President Obama talking to me about how he had joined the ill cult. He didn't want to, but that's the Illuminati. But he described himself as just an ordinary guy who wanted to take a wage back at home. That is how it was. He didn't want to end up on the streets at the end of the day. It was all about money. You had to have it to live. If he hadn't joined that those people, he would have been disbarred. He wouldn't have got a job. Wouldn't have been able to live. That's how a lot of people get conned into joining them. You are young. You want to prove yourself in life. You are told that you will never get a job if you don't, and they prove how powerful they are. Conclusion. When I was a 60s radical, we used to think people who worked for the establishment had sold their souls to the devil. I didn't imagine it was literally true, as the Illuminati are Satan worshippers, so you're unwittingly working for his disciples. The world has been colonized by this satanic cult. We are all experiencing, while trying to maintain some civilized traditions over Christmas, is their relentless attempt to induct us into their cult as mind-controlled servants. So there you go. Not sure where you stand on any of that, but and I don't know about all the protocols, you know, the elders of Zion. I don't know, but yeah, interesting to say the least, because some of this here is very, very interesting. The fact that they were talking about what is happening now back in 1969 is quite astounding, if you ask me. So let's go on now and see where we are. Let's see how long we've been going here. 46 minutes. Alrighty. Well, I will keep going until we run out of time. And then I'll see if I have it in me to do another short one. All right. So let's move down to here. This is Donald J. Trump speaking. I am ready to send $105 billion to the states to help open schools safely with additional personal protective equipment. Democrats are holding this up. No surprise there. And Mark Meadows states, today, a former top FBI lawyer pled guilty to falsifying documents in a FISA warrant against a 2016 Trump campaign official. The implications of this are enormous. We're getting closer and closer to justice. The walls are closing in on this Russian collusion hoax. And I do believe that. All right, now let's look at this. Can't remember what this is. Yeah, this is very, very odd. Very odd. Okay, hang on here. This is from True Reporting. Said, was sent to me. I find it very strange. Don't you? Check the bookcases. Is this a set controlled by white hats? Never forget, we are watching a movie. Now, I did see this picture here, and I'm sorry I can't make this larger, but what it is it's Biden in his basement, and everything is raised. The little side table here is raised, and look at the desk. It's on these big trunks here to raise it up, and here is this white bookcase, and I never really put this together, but that bookcase has been seen in a lot of videos. So let's look at this. And this person says, let's play a game. I spy with my little eye all the strange things going on with this photo. Why is everything raised? Why this set? Look at the bookcases. Are they the same that we see in Obama and Michael using? What's going on here? Well, yes, indeed, they are the same. So what's that about? Now, let's move forward here. Look at this bookcase behind Obama, same one that's behind Biden, and same one that's behind Mishel. So, what's that about? And look at here. This is Tucker Carlson tonight, and look at this. Yeah. Strange. Same bookcase. What's that about? No, really. What's it about? I think we need to know, because that's a little strange, don't you think? This has to be a set. That's all it is. It's a set. So why are they using the same set for all these Democrats? Why? I mean, really. That's very disconcerting, to say the very least. So and it says, this was sent to me. I find it very strange, don't you? Check the bookcases. Is this a set controlled by white hats? Never forget, we're watching a movie. So who's controlling this set? Is it the white hats? Have these people actually been under arrest, as many suggest? And they're just playing their role in the movie to, cover up the fact that they are all under arrest. I don't know, but something strange is going on there, and that needs to be looked at even further, and I intend to be on it. So, all right, there's that. And I think this is going to be the last thing we look at here for this video. Tom Shelley, Cuomo stops the 9/11 memorial but allows the MTV Awards. Tell me again why he's in office? Yeah, that's a good question, isn't it? Why on earth would he stop the 9/11 memorial? But they allow all the peaceful protesting, and I mean, there were all those people crammed together with the Black Lives Matter mural, which isn't a mural at all. It's just writing on a road. I don't know when that became a mural. I guess because they say it's a mural. But anyway, yeah, a little odd, don't you think? So I think I'm going to end it there for this video, and I may come back and do another short video. So I'm going to get this uploaded so that hopefully you'll get to view it before midnight, because we know how long it takes them to process this. So that is it, and thank you so much for watching. If you enjoy the videos, consider supporting me on Patreon or through Ko-fi, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you guys for watching. Good night.